You're standing at the top of the wave pool, sun on your shoulders, the smell of chlorine and sunscreen in the air. Below you, 1,000 people are screaming with joy. The lazy river curls around the property like a moat. Kids are dropping quarters into the arcade. Families are lined up 6 deep at the funnel cake stand, and every single one of them paid to be here. You built this. You own the summer. From up here, it looks like a money printer with a slide attached, a place so obviously fun that the profit feels automatic. Everybody loves a water park. Nobody hates one. How could this possibly lose money? Here's the thing you're looking at that lies to you the most: the crowd. That happy, sunburned, screaming crowd tells you almost nothing about whether you'll make $1 this year, because the crowd only shows up when the sky cooperates, and the sky does not sign contracts. So let me hand you the one sentence that changes how you see this entire business. A water park is not a fun business. It's a weather and liability business that happens to have slides in it. Everything glamorous about it, the tubes, the wave pool, the tan teenagers with whistles, is just the visible tip. Underneath, you are running a bet on 90 days of good weather, backed by an insurance policy and a payroll that never sleeps. Once you see that, every strange decision successful owners make suddenly makes sense. So slow down, because we're going to build this from the ground up. There isn't one type of water park. There are several, and each one is a completely different business wearing the same swim trunks. At the smallest end, you've got the Municipal Aquatic Center, a city pool with a couple of slides bolted on, run by a parks department that doesn't need to turn a profit, just needs to not embarrass the city council. Then there's the community water playground or splash pad operation, the ones you can build for under $1 million, low ceiling, low risk. Above that sits the regional outdoor water park, the classic version you're picturing, generally costing somewhere between $10 million and $40 million to build, drawing from a 2-hour drive radius. Then the indoor water park resort, usually attached to a hotel, which flips the whole model on its head because it runs year-round and sells beds, not just day passes. And at the top, the destination megapark, the Schlitterbahns and the Typhoon Lagoons, where the largest builds run $60 million to $100 million and up. Each of these is a different bet on the same question. Do you make your money from many people paying a little, or few people paying a lot? The municipal pool makes almost nothing per head and survives on tax dollars. The resort makes a fortune per head because it's really selling a hotel room with water attached. We're going to focus on the regional outdoor park, because that's the one civilians actually dream about owning, and it's the one where the weather trap is most brutal and most invisible. Now let's talk about what it actually costs to unlock the front door, because this is where the fantasy gets expensive fast. You probably think the big cost is the slides. It's a real cost. A single large body slide or a signature attraction can run you several $100,000 to a few $1 million installed. But here's the catch. The slides are not what breaks first-time owners. The thing that eats you alive is everything you can't see from the top of the wave pool, the water infrastructure. A water park is, mechanically, an enormous plumbing and filtration plant that you happen to let the public swim inside of. Every gallon in that wave pool and lazy river has to be pumped, filtered, chemically treated, and recirculated continuously, all day, every day, to meet public health code. The filtration and pump systems, the surge tanks, the water treatment building, that's a hidden capital sink most dreamers never budget for. And here's a formula almost nobody outside the industry has heard of: turnover rate. Public health codes require your pool water to be completely filtered and recirculated within a maximum number of hours. For a high-activity attraction, that can mean a full turnover every hour or two, while a large pool might be allowed 6. The bigger and shallower and busier the water, the faster the required turnover, and the faster the turnover, the bigger and more expensive the pumps and filters you're legally required to install. You don't get to choose. The code chooses for you. Then layer on the bathhouse capacity ratios, the required number of fixtures per expected bather load, the deck space minimums, the fencing and signage codes, the health department plan review. Walk the arithmetic. Land and site prep, then the water plant, then the attractions, then the buildings, then the parking, then compliance and permitting. By the time you've unlocked the front door on a real regional park, you're realistically looking at an all-in capital range of $15 million to $40 million. And the slides, the part you were excited about, are maybe a third of it. Now here's where it gets dangerous, because that capital doesn't disappear once you've spent it. You either bought the land and financed the build with debt, or you're leasing the site. And either way, you've just signed up for a fixed cost that shows up every single month, whether or not a single guest walks through the gate. That's the fixed cost trap. Debt service on $20+ million is a number that doesn't care about the forecast. Property taxes don't care, the lease payment doesn't care, and this is exactly the geographic rule first-timers get wrong. They choose a cheap location. Cheap land is cheap for a reason. A regional water park lives or dies on its drive time catchment, the population within a comfortable 2-hour drive, and on the local climate, meaning how many genuinely hot days that region reliably delivers each year. Cheap land is usually cheap because it's too far from enough people, or because the summers there are too short or too unreliable. You can build an identical park in two places, and the one in the shorter, cloudier climate is structurally doomed, no matter how good the slides are, because it simply has fewer days to earn. And that brings us to the centerpiece, the thing outsiders never guess. Picture a coin flip, except the coin is the weather, and you only get to flip it about 90 times a year. A regional outdoor water park does essentially all of its business in roughly 90 to 100 operating days, one summer. Some seasonal parks run on as few as 90. That's it. That's your entire year of revenue, compressed into the length of a school summer break. Now slow down and do the math on what that means. Your fixed costs, the debt, the taxes, the insurance, the year-round maintenance and management run 365 days. Your revenue runs 90. So every single operating day is carrying about 4 days of the calendar on its back. Read that again. One rained-out Saturday in July is not one lost day. In a 90-day season, a peak summer Saturday can represent a wildly outsized share of your annual take. Because attendance isn't spread evenly, it stacks into the hot weekends. Industry attendance data shows how brutally peaked this business is. At seasonal parks, a single peak month can account for well over 1/10 of the entire year's attendance, and the peak week inside that month can be 1/4 of the month. So picture the physical reality. Your park has a hard capacity. The wave pool physically holds only so many bodies, the parking lot only so many cars. On a perfect hot Saturday, you sell out and you can't sell one ticket more. The building literally cannot hold the demand. But on a rainy Saturday, you don't get to make it up later. That demand doesn't roll over. It evaporates. You have unlimited downside on a bad day and a hard ceiling on a good one. That asymmetry, capped upside, uncapped downside, compressed into 90 flips of a weather coin, is the real business, not the slides. So how does cash actually move through the year? Here's the rhythm. You spend all spring bleeding money, hiring, training, opening the plant, buying inventory, with zero revenue coming in. Memorial Day weekend, the gates open and the tap turns on. June, July, and early August are the flood. That's when essentially your entire annual profit gets made. Then Labor Day hits, the schools reopen, and the tap slams shut. September through May, you are pure outflow. Smart operators plan their entire financial life around surviving that 9-month desert on 3 months of water. Amateurs see the July cash pile up and think they're rich, spend it, and then get wrecked by the winter that always comes. Then there's the psychology, and this is where the design gets deliberate. Notice that a water park is engineered to keep you inside as long as possible, because the ticket is only the beginning. Once you're through the gate, you're a captive audience with nowhere to buy food but theirs. And per guest food and beverage spending in this industry commonly runs in the range of $20 to $30 a head. That's not an accident of hunger, it's the layout. No re-entry policies, no outside food or coolers, the funnel cake stand positioned exactly where the exhausted 5-year-old will see it. The park is physically shaped to convert your afternoon into ancillary spend disguised as necessity. The season pass does something even cleverer. It takes your weather risk and quietly hands it to the customer. Sell someone a pass in May and you've banked their money whether they come 10 times or 0. The rainy Saturday still hurts your food and drink sales, but the pass revenue is already in the vault. But now for the part of the reframe that actually kills owners. Liability. Because the second largest thing on your books, after the debt, is the cost of the fact that people can die at your business. Let me tell you about Schlitterbahn. In 2014, they opened Verrückt in Kansas City, promoted as the tallest water slide in the world, taller than a 17-story building. In August 2016, a 10-year-old boy named Caleb Schwab was killed on it. The slide was demolished. The park's leadership faced criminal charges that were later dropped, and within a couple of years, the Kansas City Schlitterbahn was sold off and shut down. Here's the structural lesson. It wasn't an empty park. It was a popular, packed, famous attraction. The full parking lot told you nothing. One catastrophic liability event took a business that looked wildly successful and ended it. Or take Seven Peaks in Provo, Utah. For years, a beloved local institution, the kind of place a deputy mayor calls part of the city's identity. The operator fell behind on rents and property taxes, ran up debts exceeding several $1 million, and filed Chapter 11 in 2018. The crowds had loved it for decades. Love doesn't service debt. The fixed costs kept running through every off-season until the structure simply couldn't hold. That's why insurance is not a line item you shop for once. It's a permanent, heavy, structural cost that behaves like a second mortgage. General liability, property coverage on multi-million-dollar attractions, workers' comp on hundreds of seasonal teenagers, food service liability, business interruption coverage. Estimates for a small to mid-size water park's annual premium load can run anywhere from tens of thousands into the low hundreds of thousands of dollars, and a single serious claim can dwarf that. The Schlitterbahn settlement alone reportedly exceeded $20 million. You are, in a real sense, paying rent on the possibility of a bad day. So let's build the plane engine. Profit equals average revenue per guest times number of guests minus your fixed costs. Say you clear $40 to $55 per guest all in, ticket plus food plus the arcade, after the cost of goods. And say your total annual fixed cost, debt service, insurance, taxes, year-round staff and maintenance, lands somewhere around $3 million to $6 million for a mid-size regional park. Divide the fixed cost by the per-guest margin, and you get your break-even. You need something on the order of several 100,000 paying guests before you make a single dollar of profit, and you have to pull all of them through in 90 days. Now add the part nobody warns you about: ramp up. A brand new park doesn't hit its attendance stride for years. The first season or two, you're often building the habit while still paying full freight on the debt. And even a mature park is running in place, because a chunk of last year's guests churn out. The kids age up, families move, novelty fades, and you have to re-earn them every single spring with new marketing spend and often a new attraction. Which is exactly why the parks that survive lean hard on a second, higher margin revenue stream. For the regional outdoor park, it's often cabana and private event rentals. You sell the shaded cabana by the wave pool for a premium that costs you almost nothing to provide, and you book corporate buyouts and birthday parties that pay a flat, guaranteed rate regardless of the gate. For the resort model, it's the hotel rooms themselves, which is why so many serious operators eventually add a hotel and go indoor. A bed sells year-round and doesn't care if it's raining. These streams have a ceiling. You only have so many cabanas, so many rooms, but their margins are what turn a break-even summer into an actual profit, and they're what smooth the terrifying gap between a good year and a bad one. So let's put a good year and a bad year side by side, using the same park, and watch how quietly the gap opens. In the good year, you get a long, hot summer, a run of dry, 90-degree weekends right through July. Attendance lands at the top of your range, the cabanas sell out, per-guest spend runs high because everyone's hot and thirsty, and you clear a healthy profit north of your fixed costs. Nothing dramatic happens. It just doesn't rain on Saturdays. Now the bad year, and notice there's no disaster in it. It's just a cool, wet summer, a handful of rained-out peak weekends, the kind of thing that shows up nowhere except your gate count. A competitor opened a splash park across town, so your churn ticks up and a slice of your regulars don't renew. A main pump in the filtration plant fails in July, and the repair bill spikes. Insurance renewed higher after an industry-wide bad year. None of these is a headline. Add them up and your attendance drops maybe 15 or 20%. And because your fixed costs didn't move an inch, that revenue drop falls almost entirely to the bottom line. The gap between your good year and your bad year can easily be several $1 million of profit swing. And here's the part that should stay with you. Almost none of it was visible. There was no fire, no lawsuit, no scandal. Just clouds on the wrong weekends, quietly compounding in a spreadsheet. So if you do decide to own a water park, remember the one thing that actually decides whether you succeed. It was never about the slides. The slides were always the easy part. It's about the 90 days and the sky above them, and whether you built a structure light enough to survive the other 270. You thought you were buying the summer. What you actually bought was the winter, and the bet that the sun shows up on time.